So, a couple months back, I attended MCM Comic Con for the first time in over 5 years, and I found a quiet little section called Artistalley. Here is a pro artist rendition of Artistalley because I forgot to take a video. After seeing all these amazing artists, I decided I also wanted to be this. So I started Googling how to get involved with Artistalley. And after trawling through a bunch of posts on Reddit for cons and looking at these cons websites, I dropped a few inquiries, not really expecting anything to happen, when suddenly they sent me a link to book a table. So after patting myself on the back for masterfully conning my way into a con, I was suddenly hit with the realisation that I did not have a clue what I was doing, and I now had approximately 2.5 months to sort myself out. So what to do? First, panic and take a nap. And the next thing is checklist. So I started making a checklist of things I'd need to do before the con, and I did a bunch of research by looking at other artists' YouTube videos to see what kind of things they did for Comic Cons. And I also had to do a bunch of research into UK tax law because currently I've got a full-time job and I wasn't sure whether or not I would need to do a self-assessment. So here's a little tax interlude. Huge disclaimer, I'm not an accountant or a financial advisor. This is just a summary of the research that I did, which you can use as a starting point for your own research. Because I know when I first was looking into this stuff, I found it really confusing. And any information I've given may also change based on the law. And I would strongly suggest, if you need any advice or further information, to do your own research or seek help from professionals. I'm not a professional. So, UK tax law, not including Scotland, means that we all have a personal allowance of around £12,570 that isn't taxed, and then any money that you earn between £12,570 and £50,270 is taxed at a basic rate of 20%, and then any money earned between £50,270 and £125,140 is taxed at a higher rate of 40%. There's also higher than that and some other rules if you earn more than £100,000, but that is most definitely not going to be a concern for me in this life. And this is all from the gov.uk website, by the way. So HMRC have some rules which say for hobbies that you've earned money from, you can earn up to £1,000 before you need to fill out a tax self-assessment form and inform them about your earnings. And this is called a trading allowance, I think. And this is because after you've earned more than £1,000, your hobby will be classed as a business according to them, regardless of whether or not you're actually intending to be self-employed or not. And this also only applies to me because I'm full-time employed. So if I was relying solely on selling art as my primary income, I think there's some differences which you need to do your own research about and see what applies to your own personal circumstances. So currently, as I earned a grand total of £10 from this con, which I will get into later, tax declarations are not really a concern for me, but I decided to keep a spreadsheet of all my expenditures and income because I'd like to do more cons in the future and see how they go. Right, okay, tax stuff over. Once again, I'm not an expert on these things, so please don't use anything I've said as actual advice. If you plan on being a full-time self-employed artist, you should definitely do more research or speak to an accountant. I beg you. Also, here are a couple of other things that I had to sort out. Number 1, getting a card reader. I did some research, watching YouTube videos and Googling comparison sites to decide which card reader would work for me. Number 2, getting public liability insurance. What is that, you may ask? It's separate insurance that covers public events that most cons require you to have in order to trade at their events. And you can get cover for a single event or cover for a whole year. And again, I just looked online at different policies and decided which one would work for me based on my own circumstances. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, I also bought a cash box to hold change if anyone wanted to pay in cash at the event, of which I got £10. Okay, so finally moving on to more of the fun stuff. When I went to MCM Comic Con, all the artists in the Artist Alley had business cards linked to their socials. So I figured I would also create a business card so people at the event could find me if they were interested in seeing more of my art. So because I collected quite a lot of cards, I used them for inspiration, and most of them also had QR codes, so I thought I would also try and make a QR code. And on top of that, I just wanted to have a normal @ with all of my socials for people who aren't as comfortable or familiar with QR codes. So after about 10 minutes of hard labour, my masterpiece was created. So now I have some shiny new business cards and the skeleton of a business, but it felt like I was missing something. Actual art products. So first things first, I already did have some artwork which I could turn into prints. So I did some window shopping on my Instagram for which ones I'd like to include. I decided to just stick to selling prints for my first con because I just had no idea how to design my own stickers or like find a company that would print and sell them, and even if stickers would just work with my art style, and prints just seem really simple and easier to manage at the start. So I just went online again and looked at a bunch of different websites that print art for prints and chose one that wasn't too expensive because I had quite a lot of different print designs that I wanted to make, and I wasn't really sure how many I should get at the start. So yeah, after settling on a website to print my art, I had to look at their guidelines for formatting artwork for uploading, and then just got to work with adjusting my own art. Because I've never made art to sell as prints before, I had to adjust the size of the canvas to fit into A4 and A5 because I wanted to sell those two sizes as prints. And a lot of my older artwork especially is square for Instagram, which meant going back and then painting over things to fill the canvas. Also, there was this little thing called CMYK. As I've only ever made art for posting online, I've always worked in the RGB colour space, which allows for vibrant colours on monitors, but unfortunately most printers use CMYK to print their art prints, so I had to go back and convert all of my images to CMYK in Krita, which messed up quite a lot of the colours, so I had to reference the original images in RGB and then try and adjust the filters and paint over things and add like blending layers on top of that to get the colours to match as close as possible to the original RGB. Not all of them were 100% accurate, but I tried to get it as close as possible. And I also had to consider things like bleed area, because most companies need you to provide an area of bleed as a buffer to avoid white lines and things like that when the art's being printed. So again, a lot of this detail was on the website that I used called Mixam, and they were very nice and very helpful with helping me kind of get my stuff sorted because I made loads of mistakes. But yeah, on top of that, I made a couple of other new art prints as well, so I had a total of about 12-ish different designs at the start, and I would have done more, but I just didn't have enough time because I wasn't sure how long it would take for the prints to arrive once ordered, so I wanted to leave at least a month for everything to arrive before the con. So once that was all sorted, I exported my images and converted them to PDFs to upload onto the website because the company that I used preferred to have the artwork be uploaded as PDFs, but other websites will accept different image formats. So as I mentioned before, I made a few mistakes with my file formatting, but the people at the company were very nice and they helped me sort everything out, and they double checked with me that I was happy with how everything looked before sending off to print. So once those were sent off, I could relax a bit more and focus on fun things like designing my stall setup. So once again, I just did a lot of research by watching a bunch of YouTube videos from other artists to see how they did their setups. As it was my first con, I didn't really see a point in buying loads of fancy equipment, so I just focused on the basics that many people had. And from what I could see, branding is also very important to make your table stand out. I saw a lot of really cute stalls with single colour schemes like pink or baby blue, but I just felt that didn't really fit with the vibe of my artwork, so I decided to settle on kind of like a dark fantasy forest-ish vibe, which matches my art a little bit more, I think. So I designed a table runner for my art, and I bought a black tablecloth, and I bought a couple of wire grids. I'm sure you'll, if you've been to Comic-Cons, and you'll have seen them in Artistalley, where people kind of hang their products. And I bought some pegs to hang the artwork from the grids, and also just a couple of decorations to fit the stall's fantasy vibe-ish, so like fake vines. So yeah, once I had designed my table runner and all of that stuff, I just ordered it as well. And it came out amazing. I was so excited when I saw the table runner, it looked so good. So yeah, once my prints and stall items had arrived, I knew that I needed to practice my setup at home. I don't really have a proper table to practice setting things up with, so I just measured a roughly 6-foot area on the floor and then practiced setting up to see how long it would take, how things would look. I was a bit lazy and I basically just kept delaying it until the day before the con, but it turned out okay. And I also practiced using the card reader a few times just to make sure that it worked. I'm basically just prepping all of my stuff for the convention. So I've got a suitcase where I've put like my card reader and all of the things that I need to take with me. So I've got in here my tablecloth and my table runner and the bags for wrapping up the prints, and here I'm just got some of the prints that I'm planning on using for the displays, and I've started sorting out the rest of my prints and putting them into the box. And here I've just put all of the prints in here. So I'm taking about 20 each to the convention, and I'm just storing them all in here, and then I'll put them into the suitcase. So I've still got a few more left to do down that side, and then I've got my wire display over there where I'll just practice my setup basically. So con day. The con was in quite a small town that I had to drive out to, and I managed to rope two of my lovely friends into coming with me to help out. So once we got there, we signed in and then basically just got to setting up, which only took about 30 minutes between the three of us. And yeah, after that we just kind of waited for people to start arriving and hopefully sell some stuff. So as I mentioned previously, I only made £10 from this con. I only sold 2 prints. It was a little bit disappointing, but I thought it was like a really good experience because it kind of dipped my toes in like a smaller event, which was less stressful to deal with. And even though I only sold 2 prints, I had a bunch of people take business cards and just give some nice comments about my art, which was quite nice. But yeah, obviously again, it would have been nicer to have sold more artwork, but I am applying for more cons, so we'll see how that goes. Maybe in another one I'll be able to sell more artwork in those ones. But yeah, I think for this particular con, it was because it was such a small town, a lot of people came as more like family outing rather than nerdy people who would be interested in print. So I think because I was only selling prints, I didn't sell very well, and I know there were other artists at the con who also didn't sell loads of things. So yeah, I guess this event just maybe wasn't one that worked for me in terms of the audience that would buy my type of product. So what would I do differently? So in future I would probably have some more prints, more variety, and I have signed up for another con this summertime, and I'm planning on making some new products, including stickers and hopefully some bookmarks as well. I also got a folder to display prints in, and I'm also planning on labeling my prints properly. So during this con I kind of was just winging it. Luckily one of my friends is actually organised, so she took the time to actually label all of my prints so people weren't just pointing at them and being like, I want that one. So yes, I plan on labeling my prints properly and kind of having a proper inventory. But yeah, I think it was a really good experience overall, even though I didn't sell very much, because I've always talked about trying to sell artwork for ages, but this really forced me to kind of get my head in gear, take it seriously, take all of my other art stuff more seriously rather than just treating it as a what if. Honestly, setting this thing up was so much work, but I really enjoyed every minute of it despite making a loss overall. I'm also just hoping once I get my name out there a bit more, I'll be able to make a bit more of a profit, or even just share my art with more people, because it was really nice having people tell me that they like my artwork and take business cards and things like that. But yeah, if you've watched all the way so far, I just wanted to thank you so much for all your support. I'm planning on making more YouTube videos about more interesting topics. If you have any ideas, just let me know. But yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.